Guys, what is up? I am here on my balcony and I want to drop a video on money mindset and how to get past a scarcity mindset and a mental block that you have related to not increasing your prices. So I work with a ton of coaches, consultants, creators. I help them to make more money, have more free time, unlock more freedom in their lives. We do that by thinking like entrepreneurs, by creating leverage in their business, in their decision making, in the models that they use. And one big lever that we can pull if we want more money, more time, more freedom is the lever of price. But I see a lot of coaches making a big mistake where they underprice themselves. And I myself have made this mistake in the past. I continue at times to sell my time for less than I know it's worth. And sometimes it's a kind of mental barrier, or it's a scarcity mindset, or thinking that I'm not worth the price that I'm going to charge. So if you watch this video through until the end, I promise you we're going to get through all of those mental barriers and you're going to understand what is stopping you from actually increasing your prices. And more importantly, you're going to be able to rationally see why you're probably worth a lot more than you're currently charging. So when I'm working with people and price is something that they're a little bit scared of, they see the pricing that I recommend, they're a little bit scared to go a little bit higher, they don't know if they can deliver, they feel like it's just a little bit more than they are used to, and they're not ready for that jump up in price. There's four main things that I help them to see and to understand, and that is what we're going to focus on for this video. So the first thing that we need to look at, and I want to run with a working example here throughout the course of the video. So let's imagine that you are a fitness coach, you're an online fitness coach, and the going rate for fitness coaching in your area is 200 euros for a month of one-to-one coaching, and you charge a 3-month minimum and you sell a 90-day package for 200 euro. It's pretty standard pricing. Now, we are going to assume that you want to be a coach who charges 500 euro per month, right? Now, this is a big jump up, and if you are at the 200 euro mark, 500 euro may sound like it's not a realistic amount of money to charge, but I want you to see why it is a realistic amount of money to charge if you choose to charge it, so long as you deliver the value on the inside, and how to actually rationalize and understand why it is worth that amount of money. So let's assume that you want to charge 500 euros per month for a 3-month program. We're talking about 1,500 euros total. Now, what the unleveraged and the scarcity mindset thinking coach will think about when they see that is they go 1,500 euro for 90 days, and they just look at 90 days as what they are selling. What we need to do is we need to actually zoom out. We need to look at four things. The first thing is the cost of acquisition of the knowledge, the experience, the expertise, and the ability to actually coach that person. So if we just look at, okay, it's a 90-day program, we're selling it for 1,500 euros, that we're just looking at the kind of end product, but that is not the entire value associated with that product. If you think about the work you put in to get to the point where you can actually deliver a 90-day coaching program to somebody and get them a result. So maybe it's in the fat loss space. Now, maybe you've been in the gym for years yourself. Maybe you've spent 5 years in the gym. So let's just assume you've spent 5 years in the gym before you've got into coaching, and assume that you work out 5 hours a week on average for 5 years. In every calendar year, that's approximately 250 hours. That's 1,250 hours and more in the gym over the 5 years. So you've spent 1,250 hours in the gym learning your craft, building the habits, building the discipline. That doesn't factor in the time that you spent outside of the gym, learning about nutrition, learning about coaching, learning about new different, mobilities, whatever your expertise is. Now think about not just the time that you've invested to actually acquire that knowledge and that experience and that understanding, but what about the finances? Maybe you work with a coach. Maybe you did a PT course. You most likely did. You probably paid a couple of €1,000 for your PT course. Maybe you paid a coach 1,000 or 2,000 euros. Maybe you did a nutrition course, another €1,000. And we can very quickly start to add up the amount of money you've invested in yourself to get to this point. And for most of the people that I mentor, by the time they come to me and they're coaching people, they've all invested probably about €5,000 in themselves in the years preceding them becoming a coach. So if we're looking at over 1,000 hours and over €5,000 invested just to get to the point where they can coach somebody else, before we even look at the program, that person is coming to you to buy access to that knowledge, that experience, those skills. They can't fast track that without you. So the other option is they don't pay you €1,500 and they go and they spend 1,000 hours and €5,000 to learn it themselves. So hopefully we're starting to now see that what we provide is a lot more valuable than what we initially see when we look at a 90-day period where we charge €1,500. That's the first thing. The time, the energy, the money, the opportunity costs. What things did you sacrifice to get to the point to be able to actually coach this person? And when you actually start to crunch the numbers, you write out the hours, you write out the money you've invested, you write out the time, you write out the things you've missed out on, you can actually get a piece of paper and write all of this out, and you will end up with a piece of paper that is worth tens of thousands of euro, right? And you are now going to basically give all of that knowledge and experience and skills that you have learned, you're going to pass them directly to somebody where you work one-to-one with them over 90 days, and you're going to pass over a huge amount of value at a fraction of the price that it cost you to acquire that value. So that is the first thing. Now, secondly, we have to actually look at the lifetime value of what you're delivering. So again, if we just look in a very narrow 90-day window and we say, well, we're charging them €1,500 for 90 days, it sounds like a lot of money, we're missing the big picture. So again, fitness coach, let's zoom out. You're working with somebody who's in their mid-40s, they're 15 kilos overweight, their blood pressure is high, they've got health markers that are all going in the wrong direction. You're coming along and you're charging them €1,500. And if you're charging that amount of money, by the way, a really important distinction here is you have to be good, you have to care, and you have to really, really deliver. But assuming that you're here watching this video, you actually care, you want to build a great business, and I assume that you're already that person. So it's kind of said without having to be said, but let's just kind of bring attention to that. We have a motorbike. I don't know if you can hear it. Hopefully these mics are good. The lifetime value of the program you deliver. Imagine you work with this person. They pay you $1,500 for 90 days. You work closely with them. You help them to get their health markers back on track. You help them to understand nutrition. You help them to give up alcohol or at least reduce alcohol. You help them to manage stress. You help them to basically get to the fittest, healthiest version of themselves. And if you do this with a good coaching program, you teach them how to stay there. If they now live for another 40 years, if they live into their 80s, imagine the impact that 90-day program has over 40 years. Now, let's imagine you're charging €1,500, right? And let's imagine they live for a further 45 years. That means for every €100 they spend with you in the 90-day period, that buys them 3 years of being able to apply that knowledge. So they're effectively paying you €100 a year for the rest of their lives, €100, only €100 a year, less, €100 every 3 years, maths always gets me, but €100 every 3 years to unlock a completely new, more confident, happy, healthy, fit version of them. They might spend an extra 20 years with their family because they live into their 80s instead of their 60s. They might have a much happier life because they have less stress. Like the impact that you can have just in terms of like what actually happens after the program, because everything they learn and implement during the program carries into the next, not just the next phase, the remainder of their life, their entire life. So that €1,500 could be the €1,500 that saves them €50,000 on medical expenses down the line, that buys them back 20 years to spend with their kids and their grandkids, that improves their quality of life more than money ever could. So I really want you to think about that piece as well, the lifetime value of the service that you deliver. And if we actually extrapolate that out over the next 40 years, what is the potential value you're providing? It's hundreds of thousands of euro of value. You ask people who don't have their health and who have money, you ask millionaires, billionaires who don't have their health, they would give all of their money to have their health back. So you are providing something that is priceless, and you're literally charging a fraction of the overall value. You've got the work and the value that you are giving them for such a discounted rate. You've got the value that carries into the rest of their lives, which is, you know, what they pay is a fraction of that value. And those are kind of the two big things that the majority of the value is going to come from these things. However, there's two more things, and that is the buy-in from you and the buy-in from the client. So this is number 3 and number 4, but they're kind of the same. If the client spends a lot of money on something, or what to them is a lot of money, 500 euros a month, they are going to give it 100%. They're going to value it, they're going to do the work, they're going to be responsive, they're going to be engaged, they're not going to want to lose that money. And price is actually part of the coaching. Time and time and time again, the cheapest clients I have are always the worst. They're the clients who value it the least, they get the worst results, they put in the least amount of effort, and long term it is actually the worst decision for them, because they don't actually get the result they're capable of if they don't pay enough money for it to hurt, if they don't put in the work. On your end, if you are charging a higher price than you're used to as a coach, you will have some fear and some anxiety where I've just charged this person 500 euros a month. And that fear and that anxiety will actually push you to over deliver and to be better and better and better for your clients. So those are the 4 things. If you implement those things, there is no reason you cannot go and double your prices this week. If you are a fitness coach, just know there are people charging 200 euro. There are people charging 100 euro. If you're one of those, you need to talk to me. Come and talk to me if you're charging 100 euro, because you're never going to grow a coaching business like that. There's people charging 500. There's people charging 1,000 euros a month. And they're not necessarily better than you. They're just able to value themselves. So go and implement it, and I'll see you in the next video.